Welcome to this episode of Get Real with Real Estate. I'm Melissa Steele, as you guys know, and I'm talking to you guys about solar today. So this is something that has come up very recently for us on a few of our transactions, and it's something that a lot of our buyers and sellers are often surprised by my opinion on. So granted, that's what this video is. It's not I'm going to be chatting about some factual topics for sure, but I'm also going to be sharing with you our opinion on solar and whether or not we at Team Steele think it's a solid investment or not. So there's some definite pros and cons to solar, and I'm going to go through each of those with you so that we all have an understanding of some of the benefits and negatives of something as impactful as solar on your home. And then we'll talk about what my feelings are on them. So there's a few things that come into play when choosing a great location for solar. Here in San Diego, it's something that's very much a topic of conversation because of where we live and how sunny it is all the time, and how San Diego is often referred to as a place with sun tax, aka expensive home prices and taxes because of the sunshine and amazing vacation spot that San Diego is. It attracts a lot of people from outside the area to visit and to enjoy it. And it drives up the price points and things like that. So here in San Diego, it's a great market to install solar on your home. In Buffalo, where Jen and I moved from, not so much, because you're talking a much different weather pattern, lots of more cloudy days, much less exposure to sunlight, and therefore much less profitability when you install solar on a home back in Buffalo, for example, versus somewhere in San Diego. So the thing that you want to think about when you're thinking overall question, is solar a good investment? Where is my home located? What is its proximity to the equator, which is the best place to have solar installed, and I did look that up. So where is your relation to the equator? For example, Buffalo is much further north than we are down here in San Diego. And then ultimately, what direction does your house face? What pitch does your roof have? Is it a home that can actually, have solar installed and have it be effective? You ultimately want solar to be effective if you're paying to install it on your home. For example, what I mean by that is if you have a roof pitch that's like this and the sun exposure is like this all day, having your solar panels on this side of your roof would be really effective. If you have a pitched roof this way and the same sun pattern exists where the sun is going to be going here, you can see there's not direct light to your solar panels. It wouldn't be an effective placement for them to be installed. So based on that, now we'll transition into the pros and cons of a solar system. So some of the pros are really straightforward and we all have an understanding of them. Electricity is continually getting more expensive, and one of the things that kills me personally when I look at my bill is that delivery cost. That delivery cost is usually a pretty hefty number, especially in comparison to how much we're using. I don't know about you guys based on where you are, but here in San Diego, it's not uncommon for my bill, if it's $100, to show $40 of usage, for example, and then like $60 of delivery charge. It is very normal for my delivery to be more expensive than my actual service. So that being said, San Diego is a great market. One of the pros for certain is saving funds on that electrical cost. It feels really good to be making your own energy versus writing that check to SDG&E every month. So that is absolutely a pro. One of the pros for me personally that I know affects many of us when it comes to deciding whether or not to invest in solar is the better environmental impact and environmental footprint. So myself personally, I am big on things like recycling and doing my part to save our planet. So when it comes to my energy consumption, the environmental impact is absolutely something that's taking an effect in my decisions. I know that my SDG&E usage of my electricity is not ideal. So one of the pros is absolutely the environmental impact. Another thing that a lot of us don't take into account when we're thinking about installing solar is the tax benefits. There's a lot of credits and benefits that exist to incentivize homeowners like myself to purchase or lease solar because of the things I just named, the environmental impact, the helpfulness in terms of an economic impact as well. So really, those tax stipends and incentives are a great extra addition that a lot of us don't take into account when we're thinking about the cost of our solar and the investment that we're making. So awesome pros. Some of the cons that I see all the time that show up in whether or not solar is a good investment is the loan program that is often used. So I am a firm believer, I'm going to start putting my opinion out there. I think leased, so you're renting it from the solar company, is an awesome investment. And the reason I think that renting the solar from the company, basically leasing it, is a great investment is because of the following reasons that we're going to talk about. Leasing solar actually solves a lot of these issues that I'm about to share with you guys, what I would consider the cons on my list. Nobody likes cons. Let's dive right into them. So the first con, and I've got some notes here, are a lot of buyers do not calculate the cost over the life of the loan. This is so impactful. The same way that your $500,000 house, if you pay your consistent monthly payments, that $500,000 house over the 30-year compounding interest mortgage loan is likely going to cost you close to $1 million. Your solar does the same thing when you lease it, depending on the terms of your loan. So I have seen so many sellers where John and I have gone to sell their home, and as part of the sale, we get to pay off the solar loan that they have. And in doing so, I start to calculate, or I start to mentally calculate what the loan would have been had it taken term. So for example, one of our very first listings ever, the home had a solar system that I want to say was like $18,000 on it. But the interest rate was high. The loan was honestly a shit loan. It was a hero loan program. And after looking at it, I realized that had our client, paid those monthly payments over the life of the loan, she would have paid, I believe it was like $48,000 for her solar panel. That's a lot of money to be paying for a panel that by the time she's done paying it off is for sure going to be outdated. And, you know, it's something that's depreciating over time. So paying into a solar system, I encourage you guys, if you are thinking about a loan, calculate what that solar panel is going to cost you over the full life of the loan. It's very important. How much is that not going to cost you on day one, the day that you're, taking the loan out, because your loan may only be like $18K or $15K. Really think about the extent of the loan, and should you pay just your monthly payment, which is totally normal to do. I would say most people are not paying down the premium of their solar loan. Definitely take into consideration and be mindful of how much you're going to end up spending for that solar panel over the life of the loan. It's just a little tip. Another thing that I really want people to keep in mind is that depending on the type of loan program, these solar loans are often very poor. So they're not easily transferable. They're not something that you can easily transition to the next buyer on your property. 9 times out of 10, or maybe 8 times out of 10, from my experience, what I've seen is these loans are not transferable to a new loan. One in particular is, in my opinion, particularly poor, and it's called a hero loan program. This loan program does irritate me a bit because it's a government-backed loan program, which from my understanding should seem like something good. But when you actually look into it, a hero loan program cannot be taken on by things like an FHA loan, also a government-backed loan, or a VA loan, which if a government-backed loan does not accept the government-backed loan, it's a red flag for me. So I did a lot of digging into a hero loan and really what makes up its terms and, what it means for a client. And from my experience, the hero loan is not something I would necessarily recommend, along with most of the solar loans I've seen. So most of the solar loans that I have seen do not allow the loan to be transferred, which means that the next buyer on your property cannot assume that loan. And in most cases, it also puts a lien on your property, which literally means that should anything happen, the bank would be paid off first with the mortgage. Any other debts that you have on the home would be paid off as well. And then because the solar is a lien holder, if anything were to happen, they would actually be paid out in the sale of your home as well. And that lien will show up on things like a title report. And when you are trying to transfer ownership, not only can that loan not be transferable, the lien is not going to be transferable either. So when a lien is placed on the home and you have a solar loan, that loan 9 times out of 10 has to be paid off in the sale. So I'm actually going to run you guys through a really beautiful example of this happening to one of my clients right now after I share what my opinion is on loans. 2 other side notes of definite cons for me are I see buyers and honestly, like people who own homes, I see them getting oversold on panels all the time, meaning way more panels than they actually need for their particular property. It's kind of a beautiful balance to get just the right amount of panels where maybe you're fluctuating each month, and some months maybe you have a $10 electrical bill, and some days you're getting a credit with SDG&E, but it doesn't necessarily make sense to completely oversell your property and oversell your panel where you have basically so much energy produced beyond what's capable of your house. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, those of you watching, because I actually have not been able to verify this in actuality, but from my understanding, you get a credit from SDG&E. You don't just get a cash back check at the end. Please, correct me if I'm wrong. If those of you who are watching have solar and you've oversold your panel and basically you produce more solar energy than what's used in your home, I have a question for you. Do you get a check at the end of the year, or do you get a credit on your SDG&E statement? I am pretty sure that you get a credit on your SDG&E statement, which is all fine and dandy, but if you're consistently using more power or consistently producing more power than you're using in your home, I can imagine that that credit just increases and increases over time without any real purpose, right? So careful that you're not oversold on a panel as well. Sometimes those solar guys, they're like, oh, but your house could totally support a panel double the size. Do you actually want that? You'll want to really weigh the benefits and the negatives of that particular solar panel and its size in relation to what you've been using within your home energy-wise. And then the last point is, when you're paying for a loan, when you're paying down a loan for solar, something really important to keep in mind is that similar to your house, your panels are depreciating. They are becoming outdated very quickly. In most instances, what I've seen is that the panels that are going on someone's home the technology is already outdated. Think about when you buy a computer. When you buy a computer, most of us are not buying the top of the line, fastest processor, fastest memory. No, we're buying the technology of 6 months ago, right? And that's typically the technology that you're buying to put on your house. Typically what's affordable, what we're able to put on a loan program and purchase for our home is very often, so something to think about, going to be outdated or on its way to be outdated. So just something to think about. You will be paying down a loan on a depreciating item and something that is quickly, in terms of technology, becoming outdated. So that was a lot of information. Now to circle back and to share with you guys my opinion and kind of John and I's thoughts on solar, what we think is a really powerful solar move. So is solar a good investment? It's kind of a really loaded question. I would say yes, solar is a very solid investment if you plan on keeping your home for 5 to 10 years, for example, and if you expect that those solar panels will have a lifespan for that amount of time or longer, depending on how long your loan is. For example, I would not take a 20-year loan out on your solar if your solar panel is going to get outdated in 5 to 10 years. It just doesn't make smart financial sense to be paying off something for 10 plus years beyond, its potential lifespan. So just something to think about there. Now, if you are going to be in your home for a really long time and you're thinking of it as a solid investment, it's definitely something I encourage. But I do encourage you to think about potentially buying it up front and not putting it on a loan program. So potentially investing in solar when you have the funds for it, or when it feels like a really solid financial investment for you to make. Potentially make a more hefty down payment on them so that you're paying less in the life of a loan, or potentially purchase those solar panels outright so that you are then experiencing all the pros and those benefits that I chatted about while having solar, versus experiencing some of those negatives from coming with paying down a loan. Also, there's the great option of potentially leasing or renting solar. This is the particular route that John and I are going to be taking on this home that we're standing in right now. The reason being, we're going to have the multiple units on one electrical panel, and we really want to be smart and cognizant about our electricity usage. Here in San Diego especially, within a certain amount of usage, you pay a certain rate, and then as soon as you tick up beyond that amount of usage, you're paying almost double the rate, and if you're ticking up beyond that amount of usage, you're paying kind of an exceptional, really expensive rate. So our incentive and our goal in leasing solar is to keep our energy usage down here in the low cost bracket, instead of having multiple units on 1 meter, pushing it into a very costly bracket for us in terms of energy consumption. So for us, it's making a really smart financial decision to lease solar and install it on our house. The reasons I really love that are, I don't own it, so as it's becoming outdated, I could potentially upgrade or switch leasing programs. And 2, I'm not paying down a loan where I've had to really take into account how much that loan is costing me, right? I'm not going to be paying the leased solar off for 20 years and, potentially paying double or triple what it cost me. I'm basically paying a certain amount per month. To give you guys some insight on that cost per month, it's actually going to be less than $100 a month for our leased solar, which is a great deal. And typically, our monthly electrical bill, just to give you guys some insight, it's typically about $120 right now. And I would imagine that as we expand and have 2 units on that, I would not be surprised if it doubles, which then we're not dealing with a $240 price tag because we double our energy consumption and actually go into that doubled amount per kilowatt. I want to say that our bill would be close to like $400. So it wouldn't just double, it would actually double in terms of energy consumption and then be multiplied times that higher rent or higher rate for the electrical consumption. So that being said, definitely I am in full support of leasing solar, especially depending on the agreement. Like the agreement that John and I have, it's no install cost, it's no removal cost. As far as I am aware, it's simply my monthly payment consistently over time until and there's a period of time that we have to keep them on the home, but until we're done with that arrangement, right? Until the lease is up. Then I can choose, do I want new panels? Are these consistently providing me enough energy? Do I shift gears? It allows me flexibility. Another thing that I want to keep in mind in my opinion piece is I'm going to outline to you the perfect example of a client who unfortunately I believe was oversold on her solar a bit. She was sold by a neighbor. So I'm about to list her home. She's owned it for a little bit less than 2 years, which makes it tricky for a sale because of course you're not dealing with like 10 years of appreciation. You're dealing with a very short window of appreciation. But since she purchased the home, we are dealing with about, I want to say like 40, 50K of appreciation. So a really solid number that will absolutely pay for her transactional costs and everything associated with selling her home this close. She's in the military and it's very common for military to get transferred and have to move and do all these things. That's where we come in and where we're helpful. But what was really an unfortunate situation on this home is because she had the mentality and really thought that she was going to be in this home for a long time, 5 to 10 years, that was her ultimate goal. She bought a huge panel, huge. It not only offsets her energy cost, but she does receive that credit from SDG&E, and she runs her AC 24/7, 365 days a year at like 68 degrees. So she is consistently using that electric. It makes sense for her to do solar. But it's now less than 2 years in. She has to sell her home. Something came up, right? And life happens. That's what I really want you guys to remember. My client did not make any mistakes. None, I would say. Except for the fact that life happens and now she gets to sell, and here she's now dealing with a really important conversation that she maybe could have been supported with 18 months ago. Should she have installed solar in the first place? Because my first thought was, can you sell that solar back to the company that installed it? Because she now has to pay an almost $20,000 loan off in the closing of her sale. So in this particular client's instance, I actually think that she was oversold on her panel. I think she got sold a much larger panel than she actually needed. And she's in a really difficult loan. It's not a transferable loan. The terms aren't great. Honestly, had she chosen to not sell her home, I probably would have advised her to start paying down that loan in particular as quick as possible. Not only because it has a lien on the home, but the terms of the loan aren't that great. It's not that good of a loan. So in her particular situation, and often what I see in other people's situations is, if you're selling in 5 years or less, and I will tell you, like a lot of people do, simply because life happens. They have a baby, or they have to move, or mom got sick. Life happens. So you always want to be thinking about, okay, in a worst case scenario or in a plan B, what am I going to do with my solar panels? Should I have to sell really short term? What am I going to do with my solar panels? So it's just something to think about. I would be very cautious when it comes to permanently installing and paying for and potentially putting a loan on the solar panels of your home, simply because life happens and you don't know what's going to happen. So I would be really cautious about a hefty investment of that size, simply because a solar panel is a hefty investment. It is an investment of massive magnitude. An $18,000 solar panel costs more than your sewer replacement, or more than replacing all of your electric within the house, or more than replacing all of the plumbing in your house. So just realistically think about, am I willing to make this massive of an investment on my home, depending on, if things come up? If you're paying for outright, totally different story. Am I making this investment on my home because of my monthly savings, because of how much I'm going to save down the road, because of how much I believe in this particular product. Whatever it looks like, if you're able to pay for them up front, definitely evaluate, see if you're making an educated, informed decision, and make sure it works with the financials. If you're thinking of putting it on a loan, I would be really hesitant. I would be very careful, and I would be very smart in trying to run your numbers and get a good understanding of what that loan is going to cost you over the life of the loan. What are those panels actually going to cost you? And I mean actually going to cost you in terms of the time investment, the financial investment, what you're going to be putting on a loan, all of that stuff. So just keep that in mind. And then if you're given the opportunity to lease solar, I would definitely think about, is this lease going to save me more money than my current SDG&E bill? If it is, then for like it was for us, absolutely a no-brainer. If your solar lease is going to be cheaper than what you're currently paying for your SDG&E energy cost and your consumption, I think it's a solid choice. So I know that was a ton of information. I hope it's helpful for you guys. I get the question of, is solar a good investment? Honestly, a lot. And I feel like it's something that a lot of my sellers tend to be a bit, not regretful, but wishing they would have had more information when it had come time to making that initial decision. Should I install the solar panel? So I'm hoping that this is informative for you guys if you're kind of in that decision right now. Do I install solar? Do I not? Is my house in an optimal location? Am I being oversold a panel? You guys know that you can always reach out for us for everything real estate related, including your solar panel. But if this is a conversation that you're currently having as we are enjoying the San Diego sunshine that's finally gracing us with its presence, then I encourage you to really watch this video and think about all of the options available to you guys. Hope this is awesome and informative. Hope you're having a great day. I will talk to you guys soon.